If we want to understand web marketing, it's always interesting to look back and to see how customers' behavior changed over time. So if we go back to the 15th, we can see on this picture that the whole family is really focused on the TV set. Well, there's a good reason for that. There were few media at that time, only newspaper, billboards, and radio, and the brand new one was television. So everyone's attention was focused on television. It's a bit like nowadays on the last social media that's trendy at the moment. So in the 50s, the advertising acceptance was very high, and that was the golden age of traditional marketing. Barely, if a product was promoted on television, marketers were almost certain that sales would surge right away. But now time has changed. People are not so that much keen on advertisement, at least in its traditional form, and they just pay little attention to commercials. This is what you can see here. So you have one screen, another screen, and yet no one is paying attention to a certain screen in particular. They seem just to, I don't know, pass time, but you see the level of attention is not the same in this picture as in this one. And I've chosen those two pictures because I think they illustrate perfectly the switch between, the 15th and nowadays. So here you can say people's attention is really fragmented. And as a consequence, it's really difficult for marketers to get their message delivered. So instead of just focusing on being present, being on television, they have to be present, as we saw earlier, to the right people, on the right place, at the right time, but also they have to think carefully about the message they want to deliver, because when you talk to someone whose attention is not 100% with you, if you're not really straightforward and understandable, then you're pretty sure that your message will be completely ignored. Okay, one thing earlier in this presentation, in the part 1, we saw that web marketing is pretty powerful. For one thing, that's when you are performing a search, in no time you get your answer. And 1 second after your search is the exact timing by when you are still interested in knowing the answer. And this is why, because people are spending so much time online performing searches, every journey online basically starts with a search. The search, what we call search is paid search, account for a really high percentage of advertising spendings of many major businesses. So we'll see in detail what it is. Okay, I've typed in Nike in the search bar, and that's what we call paid search. So as you can tell, it's stating that's a commercial. That's a commercial as well, and this is not a commercial. And when I say that paid search accounts for a large part of the advertising spendings for major businesses, I'm referring to this. So that's Nike paying to be present here when someone types in Nike in the search bar. These are Nike ads as well, but here you can tell that the advertiser is not Nike, that's another one. But the principle remains the same. The advertiser is paying to be appearing on this page. Okay, so that's how we behave. Now we'll see how the advertising industry follow this trend and adapt to this situation. So who are the key players? Of course, the advertisers. So the advertisers are companies who want to promote and sell their products and services. The user, of course, people who navigate on apps, websites, and whose behavior is being tracked most of the time, as we saw earlier. I can also here say that not only apps and websites, but also everything that involves connected devices, and then of course this is trackable as well, so it can also be placed in this category. I could have add a little icon showing a connected device. And then we have advertising companies. So their objective is to monetize their audience, and we'll see in detail what it consists in. So they have a lot of people who are using their spot, so who are using their sites and so on. And they just collect and process all this data regarding people's navigation to make it at some point available for the advertisers. What makes them really powerful is that they are big companies. They have a large audience, so that when they process their data, it is statistically really significant because they have numerous data to be processed. Plus, they have most of the time real powerful research and development departments, and they are able to produce really powerful algorithms to process navigation data. And the power of those algorithms is to be able to detect someone interested in something in order to make it available for the advertiser. So who they are? Well, each site or app with a really large audience on which people can perform searches. So it encompasses all search engines, of course, also almost all social media. And also you have some companies that do not offer content at all. But they just offer the technology, just this ability to process and compute data. And the example here is Criteo, which is a French company specialized in retargeting. So, if we have to illustrate it, let's say that advertising companies do look at people navigation, then process the data and make some clusters of audience that will be available for advertiser. And if you recall the cluster of audience, this is exactly what we saw earlier with the Google ad setting manipulation, when we looked at our profile using Google ad settings. So you were considered as being keen on a certain kind of music or a certain kind of food or a certain kind of sport, whatever. And this makes you belong to a certain cluster of audience. So if a restaurant, a sport apparel company, or whoever wants to target you, this is what they would base on. So an important thing is that advertising companies most of the time have developed an interface allowing third parties being most of the time digital media agency, to use their tools in order to run campaigns on behalf of advertisers. So if I have to give some examples, a really known one is Google Ads, formerly named Google AdWords, for example. So this is a tool developed by Google, the Google advertising company, which is called DoubleClick, and they let a digital media agency use this tool in order to perform campaigns on Google Display Network, on Google Search, for example, on behalf of advertisers. So those are the advertising companies that are making quite a lot of money. They are kind of ruling the market, and those are the most powerful players. The digital media agencies, they are small to large businesses. Their job is just to handle web marketing campaigns for advertisers. And what they do not have their own tools, but they use the one of advertisers' company. So, for example, Google Ads, Google Campaign Manager, Facebook Campaign Manager, or even third-party tools like, for example, Marine software for SEA, which is the same as paid search. So that's the same as what we saw earlier when I typed in Nike in the search bar. And so there are users of the advertising company tools and clusters of audience, and it's not unusual that they specialize or operate only on a given marketing channel. So, for example, social or display or search or yes, they are really frequently specialized in just one thing. A company, digital marketing agency are asked by advertiser to run campaign, which objective is generally to raise advertisers' products or service awareness, to generate sales, and to collect leads. So we'll talk in a minute about this, but just retain that it's the advertisers are asking them, make people know my product or service, make people buy my product or service, or make people give some information about how to contact them next time to offer them my product or service. That's the three main objectives of each campaign. Then we have other players that are affiliation agencies and publishers. So affiliation agencies, the concept is a bit different. Affiliation agencies are more or less like more or less as matchmakers between publishers and advertisers. I am oversimplifying, but that's the idea. And if an advertiser wants to promote something, but doesn't want to bother himself with the briefing an agency and so on, that advertiser just wants to focus on sales and to pay only if sales are generated. This is the model that that advertiser will choose. Why? Because the affiliates, so the people helping the advertiser generate sales, will only be retributed if a conversion has been made, so if an objective has been reached. And it only focuses on sales generation and leads. So my best advice is that you go and see by yourselves what it looks like. Here, this is a link to Awin, which is an affiliation agency. And you'll see if you browse the publisher and the advertiser pages, you'll see much more in detail what it consists in. So yes, I'm encouraging you to look at this and this, just to have a better understanding of what it consists in. And lastly, publishers are websites or apps that offer content to their users and let third parties advertise on their app or site, and this is how they can earn money. I am not saying that that's the only way, but surely this is one way for them to earn money. So it can go from the really, really large website with a broad audience to the blog of a nice blogger, for example. But the principle remains the same. Those people are, those companies or people are letting third parties advertise their services or products on their site or app. Here, that's an example of a website really well known in France, and it helps people find. Well, it's a real estate website, and it helps people find their flat or house for rent or for sale. And here, this is an ad of a client of mine. So that's a company for which I am currently performing a mission, and I am being retargeted because, of course, I'm visiting this site a lot because I'm working on it. So that's an example of a publisher. You know, this site, sologer.com, is a publisher website allowing third parties to advertise their services or products on their content. To conclude, what you should retain from this lesson is that customers' behavior has changed a lot in the last 20 years. Obviously, in the last 50 years, but it's the last 20 years have seen a really, really dramatic change in the way we use the internet. Customers spend most of their time online, and what they do, they are performing searches, they are window shopping on the web, they are using social networks a lot, and they're consuming editorial and content videos. And there is not one main TV channel anymore, but there are millions of websites and apps. So it makes it really difficult for web marketers to to continue using mass media, because we saw that you cannot target with accuracy the people you want to reach. This is why, thanks to the fact that all these activities are trackable, this is the new material that is being used in order to run online campaigns. So, advertising industry is now using, at least for online campaign, is using data collection as the raw material to run online campaign. Thanks for your attention.